What do you do when you feel like the darkness is stalking you? When it feels like the world is closing in, when you don't feel like yourself, don't feel like you can get in touch with yourself, when everything feels oppressive, when you feel like you're no longer really living, what do you do? That's what we're talking about today on the Heart of a Shepherd podcast. Welcome back to season 2. This is Rob Trenckmann. I'm so glad you're with us. This podcast is designed to help you to live a transformed life and lead transformed ministries. And we're continuing our series that we started last time with encounters with Jesus in the Gospel of John. Last week, I told you about why I used to avoid the Trinity, and now I love it. It's one of the most heartwarming truths. And bigger picture, we're in the book of John, we're asking, why is it that people miss Jesus? And more specifically, why do religious people so often miss Jesus, the ones that ought to know better? This week, we're in John chapter 1, picking back up in verses 4 through 13. And so if you have a Bible, you're not driving, you can grab a Bible, follow along. John chapter 1, verses 4 through 13. But as you turn there, let me tell you a story. Yesterday morning, I was under the waterline. Do you know what I mean by this? This is what I call it when life just doesn't quite feel right. I feel discouraged. I feel empty. I feel that emotional achiness, that I'm on the edge of tears. Or yesterday, I actually was in tears. And there's not always a great reason. Like in this case, it's not clinical depression. I've had that. I've taken the medicine. This wasn't that. It's just I'm just not quite myself. It's like there's this darkness, there's this oppression. I just feel a bit unalive. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you are there. Feel lonely or discouraged. Maybe you're discouraged at work, or there's something in your family that's discouraging, or there's something in your circumstances that's discouraging. Maybe you're hurting. Maybe there's a health diagnosis that is scary or painful or ongoing. Maybe you're missing a loved one that you've lost. Maybe there's some sort of estranged relationship with a family member or with a friend. Whatever it is, there's this sense of darkness. There's this sense of being unalive. We've all felt it. Some days you feel like you're really living. We say things like, I really lived today. When I did that, I felt so alive. For me, these are times when I get to drop a whitewater raft into a huge wave on the Salmon River, or when I get to clear a mountain peak and see this amazing sunset or sunrise. There's something that's really living in those moments where you go to bed at the end of the day and your head hits the pillow and you feel like that day worked, that day mattered, I really lived today. And then there's other seasons or other days or other moments where we feel like we're just barely living. We say things like, there's just this soul-killing drudgery in my life right now. And so the question for us today is, what do we do when the darkness closes in, when the lights go off? What do we do when a shadow crosses our soul? Where do we find light? How do we find light again in those moments? And that's what we're asking as we look at John chapter 1, verses 4 to 13 today. What do we learn about the light? What's the goal of the light? What do we learn about Jesus and light? Why is it important? Why should we care? John chapter 1, picking up in verse 4, here's what it says. In him, that's Jesus. Remember, we've just done John 1 through 3. Let me read those. In the beginning was the Word. Remember, we said Jesus is the Word because God is a communicating God. He's a God that wants to be known. He's a God that wants fellowship with us. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. From the beginning of his gospel, John is making it known to us. There's a Father and a Son that love each other, and they are both God as one God, but they are a Father loving his Son and a Son loving his Father. And spoiler alert, in John 17, John's going to invite us, Jesus is going to invite us through John's writing into that fellowship, into that relationship between the Father and the Son. And so John's setting that up right in the very first verse. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him, all things were made. How were all things made? Through Jesus. Well, this is Genesis chapter 1, verse 2 or 3, when it says, and God said. And Jesus is that word through whom creation is spoken. And he's the word through whom God speaks to us and invites us into fellowship. So through him, all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. And then we pick up in our passage for today, verse 4, in him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. What do you think it means, in him was life? He's the creator. From him, all life, him, Jesus, from him, all life was spoken. All of life was spoken into being from Jesus, and not just any life, good life. And John's going to pick this up in John 10, verse 10, where Jesus says that the thief comes to steal and kill and destroy, but I have come that you may have life, and have life to the full. From the beginning, Jesus was the source of life and light. He spoke life into existence. He spoke light into existence. Remember, he says, let there be light. Why does this matter for us? Well, it's really simple. It's so simple that I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but don't miss it. If you want life, turn to Jesus. If you want life, turn to Jesus. This is so obvious, but we lose track of it so quickly, don't we? John Calvin says that the human heart is an idol factory. We're always finding and creating things that we turn to for meaning or for success or for security or for comfort other than God. When life's hard, we turn to resources to feel better. Is there enough money in the bank? Is there enough land behind the house? When things are hard, we turn to relationships to feel better. Who can I call? Who can I talk to? And of course, that's not wrong as long as it's not the ultimate thing. So several years ago, I was in an extended prayer time with a friend. We were talking with God about some things that were wrong in my soul. It's one of these kind of all night prayer sessions, and it's late at night, and we're digging in, and God is saying things to us. And my friend said to me, Rob, I think you have ghost horses. Ghost horses? What do you mean ghost horses? Like this you're starting to think this was a weird prayer session. But actually I quickly understood what he meant, because we were talking about how I had these false identities that I was turning to for security, for place, for comfort in the world. And it was like identities are kind of like horses. Follow the weird analogy. Identities are kind of like horses because you ride them. You want your identity to take you places. You look to identities to carry you places. And he was saying, you have these false identities or these inadequate identities, these things that you're looking to say, this gives me meaning, this gives me purpose, this gives me value. But like a ghost horse, when you go to sit on it, when you go to rely on it, it just disappears out from underneath you. It's like Egypt was for the Israelites. Remember this in the Old Testament. Jeremiah says, don't rely on Egypt. Egypt will be like a broken staff that breaks and pierces your hand. He's saying, you go to rely on Egypt and everything's going to fall apart for you. And these broken identities, these idols, these ghost horses are these things that we turn to for life. Say, if there was just a bit more money in the bank, I'd be okay. If my health was just 10% better, I'd be all right. If that relationship would get fixed, if that promotion at work would happen, if that crop would come in, if that child would come, if that relationship would be restored. if I could just have a little bit more influence, if I could just have a little bit more security, if people would just recognize who I am just a little bit more, then I'd have life. And John says, no. No, life comes from one place. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. Jesus says, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. So the first real question for us out of this passage is, what things are you turning to for life that won't ultimately give life? And don't hear me wrong. There's nothing wrong with relationships. Part of what I turned to yesterday when that darkness was closing in was to get a hold of family members, to connect with my wife, to connect with my parents. We need relationships. God's wired us for relationship. And of course, financial stress is real stress, and relational stress is real stress. These are real things. Please don't hear me putting a Band-Aid on things and just saying, when life's hard, when you feel unalive, just turn to Jesus. It's so easy. No, it's not always. And God gives us these other gifts as expressions of his love. But they're still just gifts, not the giver. And ultimately, they become idols if we're looking to them for real life, for full life, and they will always disappoint. I think one of the things that happens to us sometimes in this area is we kind of live with a foot in each world. We don't experience the real life that Jesus wants to offer us because we don't go all in with Jesus. As I was walking and praying and battling the darkness yesterday, one of the things I felt Jesus invite me to again was full surrender. Rob, lay down these stresses, lay down these burdens, lay down these hurts and fears and worries, and trust me. Not in some cheap, easy way, but to say, I do surrender. I'm all in with you, Jesus. My dad likes to tell the story of growing up on the farm, and they had this long stretch of electric fence. He had two choices when he would come to this particular stretch of electric fence. He could either walk about a mile down to get to the gate, or he could step over it. The fence was just at that right height where if he reached up and over with one foot and stood on his tiptoes, he could make it without getting shocked. This was a risky proposition, as you can imagine. And one day, as he went to step over the fence, the barbed wire on the fence caught on the inside of his pants in a not very convenient place. You can picture the problem. He's stuck on an electric fence on his tiptoes. If he leans one way, he gets shocked. If he leans the other way, he gets shocked. But he's on his tiptoes. He can't hold it for long. Either way he leans, it hurts. And some of us live like this. We live with one foot in Jesus' calling, the other foot in the cares and the worries of this world. And because of it, we don't actually experience the real life that Jesus has called us to. Instead, it's just kind of either direction we lean, it hurts. And Jesus doesn't offer us partial life. He doesn't offer us life so we can keep a foot in both worlds. He says, no, come fully to me. Trust me. Surrender to me. Give all of yourself to me, and I will give you everything. All of life. So, the human heart is an idol factory. Maybe you're listening to this and you're actually exploring Christianity. You go, yeah, I've actually never given my heart to Jesus. Well, that's the invitation of John 1. Jesus doesn't invite us to come so that he can be just our king or just our ruler or so that he can get something from us. No, he invites us to come so that he can give us all that he has, so that he can give us life. We surrender everything and he gives us everything. But my guess is many of you listening, you have faith in Jesus, you trust him. But if you're like me, you understand what John Calvin says when he says the human heart is an idol factory. It's like one day it's clear and you're all in with Jesus and the worries of this world have faded away, and then you wake up the next morning and there it all is again. The worries, the burdens, the stresses, there's too much month for the money, that health diagnosis, that broken relation, whatever it is, you have to lay it down again. Friends, remember in the Garden of Gethsemane when Jesus was going to the cross, sweating drops of blood, 3 times he prayed, Father, not my will, but yours be done. Have you caught that? On his knees, Son of God, in the garden, he lays down the burden. He says, Lord, I'd really, if possible, take this cup from me. Lord, I'd really prefer this doesn't happen. But nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. Can you feel the wrestling match? And he lays it at the feet of the Father, and then he gets up to walk away, and it hits him again. And so he turns back, and he kneels again, and he lays it down again, and then he gets up. There it is again. And the Bible tells us 3 times he kneels and lays it down before he's able to stand up and face the cross. None of us are facing what Jesus faced. But I know that some of you are facing real hurt. And all of us have real stresses. And sometimes we have to lay those down again and again and again and remind ourselves again and again and again, real life doesn't come from the things we can see. Real life doesn't come from treasures on earth. Real life doesn't come from that promotion at work or that successful conversation. No, real life comes from Christ alone. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Well, the passage continues. John chapter 1, verse 6 says this, there came a man who was sent from God. His name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all men might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to every man was coming into the world. John the Baptist, of course, is who the Apostle John is speaking of here. So John the Apostle speaking of John the Baptist, and he says, from the beginning, John the Baptist came to be a witness to this light. And the good news here is this light isn't just offered to a few. This light isn't just offered to the special or to the elite. No, it says, so that through him all might believe. All have the opportunity to experience real life and real light. This isn't reserved for the select or the special. In fact, often it's the select and the special that miss it. This is reserved for the broken, for the ones that know they need a spiritual doctor, for the ones that know they can't do it on their own. To them, to us, to me, to you, Jesus offers life and light. But then, notice what happens next, verse 10. He, Jesus, was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. Catch the irony here. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, children born not of natural descent or of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. Did you catch the irony here? It's dripping with irony. He was in the world. Which world? Well, this world. Well, why does that matter? It's the world he created. John has already established that. Nothing was made without him. He comes to his creation. He comes to his house, his place. He made it. It's got his fingerprints all over it. It's got his fingerprints all over it. And the world did not recognize him. And then it says he came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. He doesn't just come to the world. He comes to his people, God's people, the people of Israel, to his nation, to his tribe, even to his own hometown, and they don't receive him. These are people he made. He knit them together in their mother's womb. Every act of their lives is written in his book. He knows everything that's going to happen with them. Can you picture this? When Jesus walks the streets of Nazareth, when Jesus goes through the marketplace in Jerusalem, every person he meets, he created. Every person he meets, he formed. Every person he meets, he loves. He designed. He knows their lives, and they reject him. They want nothing to do with him. We keep asking this question, why is it that people miss Jesus? Why is it that religious people so often miss Jesus? John's introducing that theme for us here. He's not going to answer it now. He'll get into it more later. Here's what he does say now. He says in verse 12, but to those who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to be called children of God. That the picture here is of a visiting teacher, a visiting rabbi. Picture, this isn't quite so familiar to us today, but picture ancient times, and this rabbi, this teacher, this speaker comes to a village and he needs a place to stay. And so he starts knocking on doors, and most people open the door, go, sorry, no room, can't come in, no space, be gone. And yet some open the door, some receive him. And that's the picture here. Jesus comes to his own and he starts knocking on doors. And it says, to those who received him, to those who opened the door, to those who believed in his name, he did what? He gave them the right to be called children. Children. John picks this up again in 1 John chapter 3. He says, how great is the love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God. Paul picks this up in Romans and in Ephesians, where he says, we've been adopted as sons. And he specifically says sons, not because he's excluding women, but because he wants us to know that God gives us status like he gives the Son. God sends his Son to the world to gain more sons and daughters. Adopted into his family, children of God. To those who received him, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of human decision. In other words, people didn't come up with this, or a husband's will. This didn't originate in a family. Children born of God. Friends, the creator of the world, the one who holds the world together, the one who sits in the throne room of heaven, the one who sits at the control room of the universe, if he offers you entrance into his family, you better think about it. I mean, there's no metaphor that does this justice, but imagine if you had grown up in a family and you thought that this was your family, and then one day you get a letter and one of the richest people in the world, pick your person, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, whoever you want it to be, calls you, emails you, sends you this letter, and they say, hey, I think you're my kid. I'd like you to come be part of my family. I'd like you to share in my wealth. I'd like to give you an inheritance. But you'd think it was a scam. You'd think, gosh, there is no way. Check the address on that one. There's no way. But let me tell you, you'd also think about it. You'd at least research it. You'd at least inquire into it. because this is so significant. It is such a big deal. And that would be nothing compared to what's on offer here. That the God of the universe, the God of the angel armies, the one who spoke the world into existence, invites us to be family, children of God. You know what the crazy thing is? Most people don't care. Some people just ignore the offer altogether. Yeah, whatever. There might be a God, there might be not. Who cares? I've got work to go to. I've got a vacation to plan. I've got life to pay attention to. Are you kidding me? This is either true or it's not. And if it's true, it's the biggest news in the world. You owe it to yourself to give it a good thought, a good think through, a good looking into. But the thing that baffles me even more, and I can be guilty of it, is those who claim Christ but aren't making any effort to know him, aren't making any effort to draw near, aren't enjoying the benefits of being in his family, aren't enjoying the benefits of being children of God. Friends, if this is you, quit it. If this is real, this is incredible. And so let me remind you, let me invite you, let me encourage you, draw near to your Father again. Get in the Word and get to know the living Word. Spend time talking with God, visiting his throne room. This is incredible. The God of the universe invites you to climb up into his lap, to tell him what's in your heart and in your mind. Do you get the privilege here? You'll probably never want to miss a day. Who would want to miss an opportunity to speak to the God of the universe? What a privilege. We get to fellowship with other believers at church. We get to sing and respond in worship. We get to study his word together. We get to read. We get to feast on the goodness of God. What a privilege. What a privilege. This is where real life is found. By the way, if you're listening and you go, I don't think I actually have that real life, notice what John said is key to this life. He said, you receive and you believe. You receive and you believe. As many as received him, to those who believed in his name. Receive means you say, Jesus, I want you as king of my life. I recognize you're the only way to pay for sin. I can't fix this on my own. I can't get real life on my own. Sin is keeping me from experiencing real life, and I need you to forgive it. I recognize that you paid for that on the cross, and we'll talk about that more in this series. And then believe. What do you receive and you believe according to John 1, verse 12? What do you believe? Well, you believe that Jesus is God. That's what John's already established in this chapter, that Jesus is God, that Jesus is the Son of God, that God loves us as children, but that our sin keeps us out of the family. And that Jesus paid for that sin on the cross and then rose again. Receive and believe. If you're not experiencing life with Jesus, friends, do that today. Well, we started this by asking, what do we do when darkness presses in? When the discouragement, the fog, the heaviness sits on our shoulders, when we feel lost from ourselves, disconnected from our own souls, when we feel unalive, what do we do? And I told you I woke up feeling that way yesterday. It happens more than I wish it did. Here's what I did yesterday. I headed out of the house before work and I went for a long walk. Walked in the fields, enjoying God's creation, pouring my heart out to the Lord. Lord, these are my stresses. These are my burdens. I don't feel well. I wish you would solve this issue. I cried a bit. I mourned. I ached. And then I began to remember and give thanks. Give thanks for who God is. Give thanks for God's goodness to me in the past and in the present. Give thanks to God for his care for me, for his character that he displays to me. God began to lift the burden, to work in my heart, to give me vision. It wasn't just magically better. It wasn't that I went from darkness to, unicorns and rainbows and fairy. It wasn't that, but the darkness started to lift. The perspective was there again, and I could remember there's a life in Jesus. And as I once again surrendered, as I once again laid down both the things that were heavy as well as my dreams and my ambitions and my goals, and I laid them all in the hands of the Father, he came. He refreshed me. He lifted my spirit. Maybe that's what you need today. As I said at the beginning, I'm not talking about clinical depression. I've been there. I've done that. If you need the medicine or if there's real things in your life that need to be fixed, get those fixed. I'm not trying to spiritualize something that can be so physical. But I also don't want to miss this deeply spiritual component of darkness. And Jesus says in John, I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. The invitation of Jesus is to really live. Are you really living? Let me pray for us. Lord Jesus, thank you so much for leaving heaven and coming to this earth so that we can really live. Thank you that you died so that we can live. That you left the place of real life to come to the place that is so often unalive so that we can be alive and go to that place of real life. Thank you for life. Thank you for light. God, I pray for those that are listening to this today. And if there's darkness or if they know someone that's struggling with darkness, with weight, with heaviness, oh, Father, would you help them to find life and light in Jesus? And Father, I pray that with a full awareness that darkness can be really dark sometimes, and heaviness can be really heavy, and life can be really hard. Would you meet them there? Would you care for them? Would you shepherd their hearts? Would you nurture their souls? I pray. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, friends, thanks for joining me on the Heart of a Shepherd podcast, Season 2. It's been great to have you with us. If this is helpful to you, please do share it with a friend. Subscribe, like. This is available on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It'd be great if you'd share this with someone else. Otherwise, join us back here next week as we continue in John chapter 1 and keep asking this question: why is it that so many people miss Jesus? See you next time. Thanks.